day, students. You're welcome to another edition of School on Air. This is English language class. Today, we are looking at summary writing, the art of writing summary. In WAEC and NECO, as well as GC exams, summary exercise carries 30 good marks. If you can just take precaution, if you can take to all the do's and the don'ts in summary writing, you can easily get the whole marks, that is the 30 marks. Unlike in essay writing, that no matter how good one might be, it is difficult to get the all marks. But in summary writing, you can get all the 30 good marks. So I want you to sit back and listen attentively while we discuss summary writing. What is summary? A summary expresses in as few words as possible what has been said in very many words. It calls for brevity, that is, being very brief. The art of summary is when you are trying to be brief, when you are trying to say so many things that have been said in so many words, when you are trying to cut those words and you try to be very, very brief in explaining or in saying it. That is what we call summary writing. Okay, however, while you are trying to be brief, your sentences must contain the important information being conveyed in the original passage. Don't say because you must be brief, then you ignore those vital points in the original passage. You must bring out all those important points being discussed in the passage. One cannot engage in any summary exercise without having understood the passage thoroughly. When you want to do any summary exercise, you must read the passage very well and make sure you understand it. If you don't understand the passage, there is no way you can answer the summary questions correctly. So you need to read the passage about 2 to 3 times. And each time you are reading the passage, make sure you give it a maximum concentration. You have to concentrate fully, so as to know, so as to understand what is being discussed in the passage. Now, we want to look at don'ts. That is, all those things that you must not do in summary. Number 1, there is no room for examples. You are not to give examples when you are writing summary. We use examples are used only to buttress the main idea or ideas or points being discussed. We make use of examples, we cite examples when we are developing our paragraphs in essay writing. But you are to abstain from this when you are writing summary. It is very important. Then number 2, there is no room for illustrations. You don't illustrate when you are writing summary. You know, I told you earlier on that you need to be very brave. So you don't illustrate. Illustrations are used to make the points being discussed or being made quite clear. You use illustration to develop your paragraphs in essay writing. You are to avoid this completely when you are writing summary. Number 3, there is no comparison between two situations, processes, etc. that seem similar. That is, you don't compare at all when you are writing summary. You use comparison in paragraph development, and that is in essay writing, not in summary. You don't compare at all. Comparison is used to make the idea being expressed or stated well understood. When you are comparing, you are trying to explain, and this must be avoided in summary writing. Number 4, there is no repetition in summary writing. Words, phrases, clauses, sentences may be repeated in a passage for the purpose of emphasis. When you are writing your essays, you can use repetition to develop your paragraphs. You can repeat what you've said earlier on by saying that is, in other words, all these ones, they are used when you are writing essay. You use them to develop your paragraphs. You are to avoid them completely when you are writing summary. So don't repeat. Then number 5, there is no place for flowery language in summary. What do I mean by flowery language? Flowery language means figures of speech or literary devices. Hello? Flowery language means figures of speech or literary devices. You know all those your figures of speech, like simile, metaphor, personification, all those things, they are referred to as flowery language. You don't make use of this when you are writing summary. For example, let's look at this. The boy is as stubborn as a goat. The boy is as stubborn as a goat. Here, the figure of speech used here is, you should be able to know. Here, we have made use of simile. You have to avoid this when you are writing summary. Simply write, the boy is stubborn. Don't use any literary device. Then number 6, link words. Link words are not permitted in answering questions on a summary passage. You are not to use link words. We use link words are those words which are used in linking one paragraph with another or linking one idea with another. We use link words like moreover, however, in other words, that is, however, although, all those words are link words. You have to avoid all this when you are writing summary. For example, furthermore, moreover, also, however, as a matter of fact, in addition, and so many. There are so many like that. Please make sure you avoid all these when you are writing summary. Now, how do we answer summary questions? The summary section of the English language of the English language paper is the section where candidates can score all the marks allocated to summary, provided they keep to the instruction and they can identify the main points being expressed in the passage. I've already told you this earlier on, that it is easy for you, it is possible for you to score all the marks, that is the 30 marks allocated to summary questions in your exams. But that means you have to take to all the instructions, all the don'ts that I've mentioned earlier, that you must not do. You keep to there. You keep to there and make sure that you can identify the main points. The main points being expressed in the passage. Once you know all this, you can easily do very well in summary. You have to write your answers in complete sentences, not in phrases or in subordinate clauses. Summary answers have to be written in sentences, complete sentences, not in phrases and not in subordinate clauses. Please make sure you take to this. Then the sentences are to be numbered. Make sure you number your sentences. Don't write about 4 or 5 sentences in a paragraph. No, that method is no longer acceptable. You are to number your sentences. Number 1, you write your points. Number 2, number 3, until you get to the number of sentences that you are to write. Each sentence must be clear, straightforward, and correct. Avoid extraneous materials. What do we mean by extraneous materials? This is irrelevant materials. You are to avoid irrelevant materials. You have to limit yourself to the content of the passage in the summary. You are to limit yourself. Even if you know more than what is being discussed there, you have to limit yourself to the knowledge of the passage. That is the content, what the content is teaching you or telling you. Then another point is this: use your own words as much as possible. You have to use your own words. Do not copy answer word for word from the passage. Put in your own words. This is where summary is quite different from comprehension. You know, in comprehension, you can lift your answer from the passage. But in summary, you cannot do that. Even if that is the answer to the question, you are not allowed to lift. That is what we call mindless lifting in summary. And once you do that, you'll be given 0. Not even half of the mark, but 0. That is what we call mindless lifting. You have to avoid this. You have to use your own words. Use your own words, but you retain the key, the important points in the original passage. There are two ways of answering summary questions. There are two ways of answering summary questions. The first way is preamble method, and the second way is the straightforward method. What do you mean by preamble method, and what do you mean by straightforward method? I will explain. Number one, the preamble method. This is a method whereby one writes a part of the sentence at the summary point. Where one writes a part of the sentence of the summary point as a topic. A preamble method is where you have a subtopic. You now put the subtopic, then you write your answers, your points under the preamble. That is what we call preamble method. You have a subtitle. In this case, each of the points to be written in a sentence will continue from the preamble. If you take the preamble with the points written, it will make a whole sentence. If you use this method, you can write your points or your answers in phrases or in subordinate clauses, because when you take each of them with the preamble, it will form a sentence. It will form a complete sentence. So it is allowed under this writing answers in phrases or in subordinate clauses is allowed under preamble method, not under straightforward method. There's something I want you to take note of here. You have to note that once there is a grammatical error in the preamble, it affects all the points written under the preamble. If you make any grammatical mistake in your preamble, it will reflect, it will affect all the points that you mention under that very preamble. So that is why you need to be very, very careful. For example, you want to say about, you have to write the importance, the 5 importance or the importances of, maybe the question says you are to give 3 points why something is this. Then say the 2 points or the 3 points why this is this are, hello, you have to use are because you are giving more than one. If you say the 2 points is, the 2 points is, remember, concord agreement, right? So you have made a grammatical blunder there. So it's with that particular mistake will affect all the points that you have under that particular preamble. This is where you need to be very, very careful. So make sure your preamble is error-free so that other points won't be affected. Then number 2, the second method is the straightforward method. This is where the point is written without any subtopic. The straightforward method is where you don't have any subtopic. You have to write out your answers in sentences here, not in phrases or in subordinate clauses. You have to write out your answers in sentences, in complete sentences. But there's something I want you to take note of. Note that be careful not to write your answers in a phrase or a subordinate clause. If you have your answer in a phrase or in a subordinate clause, if 5 marks is allotted to that particular point, half of the 5 marks will be given to you because your answer is not written in a sentence. So make sure you write your answers in complete sentences once you are using straightforward method. It is very, very important that you take to this. Okay, I want to quickly take you back to all what I've said earlier on, that summary writing is a very important aspect in English language, and you can score all the marks that you have under this method once you take the pains to do your work thoroughly. Once you take the pains to do your work the way it's supposed to be done. There are some things that you are not to do when you are doing summary exercises. You don't give examples. You are not to give example at all. We use examples in essay writing to develop our paragraphs. You are not to explain. You are not to illustrate. We use illustration to explain. You are not to repeat. When you are writing summary, there's no room for repetition. You can repeat when you are writing essay. You can say, in other words, that is, I mean, that is when you are writing essay, but avoid all this when you are writing summary. The use of flowery language, like figures of speech, is not allowed in summary writing. You are no figures of speech like simile, like metaphor, personification. All those figures of speech, they are not allowed. You are not to use them when you are answering summary exercise. You are to write out your answers in sentences, clear, correct, and simple sentences. Avoid the use of flowery language in summary writing. It is not allowed. Yet then you are not to add irrelevant materials, extraneous materials. It is not allowed in summary writing. You are to limit yourself to the content of the passage. Limit yourself. If you are given 5 advantages or five advantages of something in a passage, maybe, for example, let's take agriculture now. Maybe as an agric student, you have been taught about 5 advantages of that particular thing. You have been taught about, in your agric class, you have been taught about 10 or 8 points there. But in the passage, you have just about 5. You have to limit yourself to those 5 points. Don't add other ones that are not included in the content. You are to limit yourself to the content of the passage. Then I also told you that there are 2 ways of answering summary questions. And the 2 ways are the preamble method and the straightforward method. The preamble method is when you have a subtopic before you write out your points. Then the straightforward is where you don't have subtopic, where you are to write your answers in complete sentences. If you use preamble method, you can write your answers or your points in phrases or in subordinate clauses. But if you are using straightforward method, you are to write your answers in complete sentences. The next episode, we are going to look at a passage on summary writing, and we'll try to read this and answer the questions on it. Thank you very much, and stay blessed.
Thank you.